Welcome to This Explainer. Today we're doing something a little different. We're going to forensically deconstruct an incredibly brief yet absolutely chilling piece of text. As you know, my passion is taking complex ideas and breaking them down so we can truly understand the architecture of the information in front of us. So we aren't looking at some massive data set or a 50-page research paper today. Instead, we're analyzing a source text that is literally just 8 words long. But man, in those 8 words lies a complex, terrifying narrative about modern society, trust, and vulnerability. We're going to isolate every single concept, piece by piece, to figure out exactly how language constructs terror. Okay, let's dive into this. Jason Dalton, the active ride Uber spree killer. Just let that phrase sit with you for a second. In just 8 words, this text creates an entire conceptual universe. It doesn't just name a person, it names a whole era, a technology, a status, and a horrifying outcome. When we look at this phrase all at once, it feels pretty overwhelming. It triggers all these immediate cognitive alarms. But to truly grasp the heavy weight of what this text is telling us, we've got to dismantle it. We need to look at the isolated variables that make this specific sequence of words so uniquely modern and so deeply disturbing. All right, starting with section 1, the subject, Jason Dalton. Jason Dalton. Grammatically, it's just a standard proper noun, but conceptually, this is the anchor for this whole terrifying framework we're analyzing today. The craziest part about these 2 words is just how profoundly ordinary they are, right? Like, there's absolutely no linguistic clue here to warn you about the horrors coming in the rest of the sentence. It's just a familiar-sounding name. In the architecture of our source text, this normal name is the foundation. It tells us that the actor at the center of this nightmare isn't some abstract concept or a nameless force of nature. It's a specific individual guy. That sets up this incredibly jarring contrast right from the very first syllable. Moving right along to section 2, the medium, Uber. Now, what's really interesting about this is how a single brand name completely shifts the context of everything. Uber. We all know it. It's a modern digital platform. But for our textual analysis, it represents a very specific gig economy transaction that runs entirely on an unspoken contract of trust. Think about it. You summon a total stranger, you get into their personal car, and you're just trusting the app system to keep you safe. By dropping the word Uber in here, the text instantly introduces a medium of connection. It's the literal and figurative vehicle connecting our completely ordinary-sounding subject to a horrifying conclusion. It transforms a private space into a public utility and introduces a massive, massive vulnerability. Which brings us to section 3, the state, active ride. An active ride. So we aren't just talking about the platform generally anymore. We've narrowed it down to the exact operational duration of the transit. And this brilliantly illustrates the spatial and temporal confinement within the narrative structure. An active ride means the doors are shut, the car is in motion, and the transaction is literally underway. Traditionally, this is a state associated with a guarantee of safe passage from point A to point B. It's a closed loop. By inserting active ride, the text creates this locked room scenario. It tells us that whatever goes down in the rest of this sentence is happening inside the inescapable, highly vulnerable bubble of a moving car. Take a second and really think about this. How do the concepts of an active ride and a spree killer even conceptually coexist? Think about the cognitive dissonance of smashing these opposing ideas right next to each other. On one hand, an active ride is a service. It implies customer care, GPS tracking, convenience, you name it. On the other hand, the text abruptly slams that safe concept into the most chaotic, destructive force imaginable. The tension here, and in the source text itself, lives entirely in the space between those 2 clashing ideas. And now, section 4, the classification, spree killer. Let's make sure we explicitly define this classification, a spree killer. Conceptually, this is someone who commits acts of lethal violence in a rapid, continuous burst across multiple, shifting locations. So unlike a mass murderer who stays in one spot, or a serial killer who takes long cooling-off periods, a spree killer is all about momentum and movement. When you attach that specific definition to a ride-sharing platform, the implications are just staggering. The Uber isn't just the crime scene anymore, it becomes the actual engine of the spree. The active ride provides the camouflage and the mobility for violence across those shifting locations. Let's move to section 5, the terrifying intersection, and see how this builds. When we pull all these isolated pieces together, the contrast is super sharp. On the left side of the equation, you've got the everyday safety and mundane utility of an active Uber ride. Millions of us do this daily without even blinking. But on the right side, you have the completely unpredictable, lethal danger of a spree killer. The text forces these two totally different realities to intersect. It represents the ultimate violation of an assumed safe space. It takes a system designed for frictionless modern living and exposes how easily it can be inverted into a mechanism for frictionless violence. This intersection is exactly why these 8 words hit so hard. To really appreciate the architecture here, we have to look at how this builds step by step. The tension escalates with near mathematical precision. Step 1 establishes our reality, a specific name, Jason Dalton, or grounded. Step 2 brings in the environment, Uber, a trusted platform, we feel familiar. Step 3 tightens the parameters, a vulnerable operational state, the active ride, the doors lock. And finally, Step 4 delivers that fatal blow to our expectations, spree killer. Notice how the text just pulls you in with normality, leans on your assumptions of safety, traps you, and then reveals the true horror. It is an absolute masterclass in conceptual escalation. So the crucial point is how these distinct elements lock together to form something entirely new. We are quite literally looking at the architecture of a modern terror. This isn't just violence, it's violence facilitated by the exact systems we built for convenience. The specific actor uses the specific platform hidden within the ongoing status of the active ride to fulfill the lethal categorization of a spree killer. Based purely on breaking down this text, we're seeing the emergence of a completely unprecedented subcategory of crime. It's a type of terror that could only exist right now, in the 21st century, relying on smartphones and GPS to even function. As we wrap up this explainer, I want us to reflect on the full phrase just one more time. Jason Dalton, the active ride Uber spree killer. We've broken it all apart, and now putting it back together, you can really feel the dark gravity of every single word. And it leaves us with a pretty profound question to chew on today. What happens when our modern conveniences, the apps we trust, the rides we take, the digital contracts we quietly agree to every single day, become the very vehicles of our worst nightmares? It really forces us to re-examine the blind trust we place and the invisible systems running our world. Thank you for joining me for this focused deconstruction. Keep asking questions, keep looking closely at the information around you, and I will catch you in the next explainer.